about pirate site in Japan. Actually, it is not in Japan, as you know. So 2018, we have a big argument about Manga Mura with comic site. So we are talking today about that. So our speaker is from George Shishido, professor, University of Tokyo, but he is not coming today. He will present by video. And also lawyer Ryoji Mori, and from civil society, Keiko Tanaka, and also government, Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications, Kuniko Ogawa will present after my introduction. So first of all, I will talk about some manga. Probably many young people will know, not only in Japan, about the manga, but some people do not know about it correctly. So the manga is a comic, not animated. And also they are physically almost a weekly magazine and comic books, and sometimes we now have some e-comics. So manga market size is almost 500 million Japanese yen. Impact of digitalization is its sales down almost every year, and but sales of digital comics is growing now. As you know, many young people have digital devices. The background about the Manga Mura issue. So Manga Mura is a website, the pirate comics, increasingly became popular among young people or high school or junior high school children. Read it. Many of them know about that. So offered seamless access to legal and illegal manga contents without the paywall, so they don't have any benefit from the pirate site. The beginning of this issue is February 1918. Japan Cartoon Association released a statement about the pirate comic sites. So the same year, the April, Japanese in the cabinet decides the station constitute emergency response to request ISPs to voluntarily block the access to the three big pirate comic sites. So, and at that June, I lost fired. July, the next year, July, arrest the manga operator arrested. And this year, June, conviction of the leader, they have 3 years in prison and fine 10 million yen and surcharge 6 million yen. So this is an overview of this issue. So next, I will provide the video from Mr. Shishido, translate from by Keiko Tanaka.
Thanks for the opportunity to join the Asia. I am sorry I was
I think the audio is not clear.
Can you hear me? Can you hear this?
No, we can hear it.
Okay, just a moment. Again.
Thank you so much. My name is
How about
Shishido at
this?
the University of Tokyo. Thank you for the opportunity.
It's much
for me to
better.
be able to
I can
join
hear
the
the
ASEAN
audio.
in the Asia Pacific region. I am sorry I wasn't able to come here to present in real time, so I provide you the recording in English, and I will have my translator to interpret in English. My slides are in English, so I hope you get the picture. Today, I will talk about the essence of secrecy of communication and countermeasures against manga parasites in Japan, in the government and the private and public sectors. So a little bit about me. I teach Constitution and Information Law at the University of Tokyo. I was among the member of task force on the countermeasures against online pirates at Intellectual Property Strategy headquarters in the cabinet in 2018, among the other panelists of today. Thereafter, I've been the chair for consultation committee on the platform services in the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communication since 2018. And I've been the co-chair for the working group for the Safer Internet Association tackling for online piracy. So I want to share the arguments point for DNS blocking as a countermeasure against giant pirate sites, and about the cooperation among stakeholders, and the overview of current policy ongoing countermeasures. So first, I want to look at the nature of Constitution, Japanese Constitution, which was established in 1946. It is a liberal democratic constitution in principle. And in 21 article, the Article 21 stipulates the freedom of assembly, expression, and press. And along with the freedom of expression comes the secrecy of communication, as stipulated in nor shall the secrecy of any means of communication be violated. This protection of secrecy of communication is embodied in the Telecommunication Business Act, which encompasses most of the foundational aspects of freedom of expression on the internet. So the secrecy of communication, in the understanding of it, is that any knowledge, theft, or leakage of both content and metadata of telecommunication constitutes a violation to secrecy of communication. So it's not just content, but metadata constitutes, when acknowledged, it's infringement to secrecy of communication. So the infringement of secrecy of communication by telecommunication operator without user's consent is illegal in Japan, and it's punishable, but have a certain exception, which are legal action legitimates business conduct, self-defense, and emergency evacuation or emergency policy actions. So when we look at the freedom of expression in Japan, in comparison to that of the US and the EU, in practice is much weaker than the one in the US and the one in the EU. But the secrecy of communication has been able to complement this weak freedom of expression by both limiting government powers and prohibiting telecommunication operators from interfering users' communication and privacy. So this is a very unique to Japan, in that the secrecy of communication as indispensable complement to the freedom of expression. It is recognized by the European Commission that the data protection is adequate to GDPR in 2019, thanks to the high evaluation to secrecy of communication. Because in comparison to EU, the Japanese personal data protection is not as ideally strong as than the one in the EU. So there is no law that enable ISP to block any sites. So no DNS blocking is legal. However, particular case of child pornography has been considered an emergency evacuation. In 2011, Japanese government and ISP agreed that the protecting dignity and personality of victims by precluding browsing of the child pornography can be compelling interest than other rights, that it constitutes emergency evacuation, and it is difficult to stop these websites because their servers are outside of Japanese territory. So as an exception, major ISP have voluntarily blocked the child pornography sites which are specifically listed by the Internet Content Safety Association in a very restrictive manner. So moving on to the issues of comics, Manga and its pirate site. So comics are a very important part of Japanese culture. And in the midst of declining physical comic sales, digital comic sales are growing and is an essential source of income for publishers. Manga had been using bulletproof hosting Cloudflare CDN service since 2016, and its height had 100 million access per month. And this accounts to, through our estimated calculation, damage of 300 billion yen to publishers. So finally, in June of 2021, the leader of the site has been convicted of 3 years in prison. But as you can see, it took years until you can expect a conviction for those pirate site, illegal sites. In 2018, given that the urgency from the publishing industry, inner cabinet decided that the emergency evacuation measures are enforceable to the case of pirate manga comics, and requested major telecommunication operators to voluntarily block users access to 3 particular giants pirate sites. This garnered a wide criticism because the nature of copyright infringement is very different from the personal dignity that is harmed in the child pornography. And there is an aspect that it's not that government is ordering ISP to block access, but it's essentially, it's called saying ISP to voluntarily block sites. So NTT, which is a former nationally owned telecommunication operator, have prepared to actually implement this DNS blocking for pirate manga sites, but it didn't because the site shut down and the controversy arose. Later that the task force was established to discuss on tackling on the intellectual property and piracy and its countermeasures. The co-chair is the father of the internet in Japan, Jun Murai, and we had an equal number of members within the task force who are for the blocking and against blocking. So I suggested several opinions. I shared some opinion in the meeting, especially from the constitutional point of view, that the secrecy of communication and prohibition of censorship, if you are to conduct blocking legislation, it has serious implication to constitutional rights of secrecy of communication and prohibition of censorship. And there's another constitutional issues about the due process and academic freedom, where you rely on the voluntary will of the telecommunication operators to take the cost of taking actions. And we are not yet found the legislative facts to support that this blocking legislation is necessary. So I was among the member in the task force who sought for some leveling the ground where we can compromise on the countermeasures. My observation to the cause for not being able to reach for a compromise was that in one, some members were using the case of Manga pirate site as a proxy to implement blocking legislature so that it could be expanded and applied to other copyright infringements such as trademark or films. And the secretaries who are administering the meeting sort of hasted to conclude that there is no serious constitutional concern, even though I raised the question in the meeting, and that they wanted to delegate the matter to a ministry where there would be less techie people who will be against the violation of secrecy of communication. So they sought to legislate to the Agency for Cultural Affairs. At the same time, publishers who initially urged for the countermeasures showcased their value to the beliefs in the freedom of expression, that they decided to value secrecy of communication, that they're not going to support blocking. So the task force got suspended without concluding anything, which is very unusual for any task force in Japanese cabinet. So aftermath is that on 2019, the government has started to have a comprehensive menu as a countermeasure against pirate sites in 3 stages. In the first stage is that promoting user literacy, building multi-stakeholder cooperation, deterring ads, filtering, and other kind of mechanism to countermeasure pirate sites. And in the second stage was to revise the existing Copyrights Act to expand on the penalizing of illegal downloads of images and text, which at that point were not part of the penalization. And if these 2 stages did not work, then the government would may or may not consider the blocking as an option. So I want to share one of the efforts from the public-private and multi-stakeholder cooperation. When the telecommunication industry and publisher did not share their views on secrecy of communications and how the DNS blocking should take place in the 2018 task force, we decided that it's important that we create a mechanism to work together to promote authorized comics distribution. So established were the Authorized Books of Japan, APrIGF, as in the logo you see on the right part of the slide. This icon is used to communicate with the consumers to show that the distribution of the content is valid and legal. And to support the efforts by the publishers and by telecommunication operators, there has been a network of the stakeholders to discuss the matter. So when APrIGF started the campaign to stop pirate content, telecommunication telecommunication operator has been supporting the action. Another layer of efforts that's ongoing is a international one. After 2018, with all these efforts, so has been working out until COVID-19, where we saw a new surge in the pirate sites, where many people are staying more time at home using internet. And we now have 10 pirate sites that amounts to 3 million per month. So this is 3 times as that of the height of the Mangamura traffic. Interesting to note is that all of the top 10 sites hosting servers are in Vietnam and use the specific CDN service that are notorious for not responding to publishers' request for copyright infringement. So with that, the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communication, the Authority of Communication in Japan, has been raising discussion in ICANN and APrIGF to strengthen enforcement by registry and registrars on domain name of pirate sites. So here's the updated comprehensive menu of the countermeasures against the online pirate sites, which includes the international cooperation as a countermeasure. So for example, just to show you what are the cooperation taking place on international level, recently in July of this year, we had the chief of the police authority of both countries, Vietnam and Japan, discussed their views on pirate sites. And in June of ICANN GAC meeting, the Ministry of Communication has been seeking to enforce the provision of the ICANN. So to wrap up, the secrecy of communication is a foundational value to the freedom of expression and freedom of internet in Japan. And now it's a common view among many stakeholders, including publishers, thanks to a newly built cooperation against pirate sites after Mangamura blocking controversy. But because of the setback of the COVID and the new surge, we may have to be more careful that this may be unavoidable in a sense that blocking legislation may take place unless these measurements in the first 2 stages do not work. And finally, given the ICANN mechanism and international trust are questioned in the effectiveness on the matter. So thank you so much.
So this is his presentation about Mangamura, and he was a member of a task force in the cabinet. And next speaker is also a member of the in the cabinet, Mr. Ryoji Mori. Could you speak? Could you start? Okay.
Yes. Thank you for having me today. My name is Ryoji Mori. I'm a lawyer in Tokyo, and also I was an ex-member of a government task force which discussed blocking. In addition to what Mr. Tateishi and Professor Shishido have said so far, I'd like to give concise overview and also talk about key points. Can you see my slide?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Well, the discussion of blocking in Japan took place in two separate periods. The first half is against child pornography, and the second half is against online piracy, Mangamura. In both phases, government proposed blocking. In the former, against child pornography, the place of discussion was a telecom industry group called JISPA, J-I-S-P-A. And in the latter discussion place was a government panel. I call the government panel as task force from now on, as Professor Shishido did so, task force. Blocking against child pornography was accepted and has been implemented to this day voluntarily, implemented voluntarily by ISPs. On the other hand, the anti-piracy measure was rejected. First, I'd like to talk about the former, against child pornography. The discussion in 2010 began in response to government proposal. They said ISPs should block the user access as a measure against child pornography. In this slide, I show opinions from groups. On the left is the opinion from cautious group, and on the right is the opinion from the proactive group. The yellow area in the middle shows consensus reached. The upper part of the yellow area, you will see we have no choice. Let's do it. The government proposed that blocking should be done voluntarily by ISP, but it was highly expected that if ISPs reject the proposal, it would become law. Government would make it law. If it becomes a law, there will be no control over the details of the law. So less protection for the secrecy of communications and more overblocking was expected. And this was the main reason behind our decision to say we have no choice, let's do it. The second green speech balloon shows other concern. I read it, but wouldn't this be a good opportunity to be asked to respond to other infringement in the same way? Yes, if we accept blocking against child pornography, they may ask us to block other illegal information. So we had decided to discuss other illegal information hypothetically at that time. The next slide shows the discussion, a hypothetical discussion. The left side, in the left side, I show the hypothetical discussion. We distinguished between personality right and property right. They are different. Personality right receive higher protection than property right. Personality rights are higher. We have concluded that the violation of personality rights by child pornography is the worst of all. Its harm of it is comparable to the violation of the secrecy of communications. In that way, we came to the conclusion in purple area. In purple area, I wrote blocking is the last resort and cannot be used other than against child porn. This conclusion was published as a report by a working group of JISPA, Telecom Industry Group. I was a chair of the working group, and this was also reported to the government's expert committee which studies secrecy of communication issues. I went to the committee and reported this face to face. The committee approved it as a good one. I was younger at that time, and I was happy to be praised by the famous great scholars there. But actually they did not praise me, they praised this report, of course. The next slide is the diagram of what I just talked about. This is the outcome of discussion. Personality right is higher than property right, and among them, child pornography is the worst and is equal to violation of secrecy of communications in terms of seriousness or damage. Now, let's move on to the second stage. Second phase, blocking as a countermeasure against online piracy. This government proposal had a sense of turbulence from the beginning. It's going to be a struggle for sure because it ignored the DISPA report 2010. And the proposal in 2018 asked major telecom operators voluntarily to block users' access to 3 monster pirate sites before without blocking registration. I'm reading second paragraph and also third paragraph. Academic or legal experts, including Professor Shishido, raised objections through media. Last paragraph. In response to objections, the government set up a task force to discuss the issue. I said sense of turbulence, and actually the flight was not smooth and the plane went up and down. It turned into a messy, heated discussion. In my opinion, there are 3 reasons of overheating. 1, telecom industry said to government, if you want us to participate in the discussion, please make sure that the task force has a fair composition. So, because of this request, there are equal numbers of members in favor of blocking and against blocking, 9 members each. 2, poor explanation by the task force secretariat of government. I will talk about this later. 3, air conditioner was broken. The task force started in June and lasted throughout the Japanese summer, very hot and humid. Okay, let's go into the misleading explanation by the government secretariat. But before talking about this, I would like to make sure the secretariat of task force is different from government division, which today's next speaker comes from. The next speaker, Ms. Ogawa, comes from MIC, which is in charge of telecom business and protection of telecom users, and therefore they protect secrecy of communications. On the other hand, the secretariat of task force came from government division in charge of intellectual property. They have to protect copyright. So they are totally different. 1, they said blocking is already in place in 42 countries around the world, but this is questionable. 2, they introduced several foreign countries where blocking was implemented, but skipped the United States where blocking proposal was rejected. The discussion in the US is obviously most relevant to us. 3, they claimed that the Japanese publishers had lost $3 billion US, but the basis for that claim was questionable. I would like to go into the details of 1 and 2 because same misleading explanation will happen in other countries than Japan in future. First, 42 countries. I'll do some reading. 28 countries among 42 were EU member states. They alleged that EU member states had legislation which enables them to block access according to EU directive of 2001. However, 15 countries among those 28 of EU member states had no record of implementation implementation of blocking as of 2018, they hadn't done blocking at that time. But despite of that fact, the Secretariat includes those 15 countries as implementing countries. So so 42 already 42 countries is doubtful. I could not complete the survey due to lack of resources, but I made disclaim in the task force, and I said that this is questionable, this is doubtful, but got no objection from Secretariat. This slide shows discussion in the United States. I'll do some reading. In October 2011, a blocking bill, SOPA, Stop Online Piracy Act, was introduced in both the Senate and the House of Representatives. Internet companies, consumer groups, etc. opposed it, and a blockout protest was held on January 18, 2012. Wikipedia shut down its service for 24 hours on that day. The Obama administration stated that it would not support the bill because it would lead to internet censorship, stifle innovation, and make the internet less safe. On January 20, 2012, Congress announced that the bill would be postponed indefinitely. Speaking of the United States, we got some advice from EFF, Electronic Frontier Foundation, during our discussion. They say EFF to Japan, reject website blocking. Website blocking to deal with alleged copyright infringement is like cutting off your hand to deal with a paper cut. Oh, okay, let's get back to Japan. Task force was coming to an end, and it was expected that if summary or report or whatever came out of the task force, even if it contained arguments for and against blocking, it would be used to facilitate the legislation of blocking. This is because majority vote for against can be done better by the Diet rather than task force. They may say, okay, you are experts. We are representative of the people. We will vote on it in the Diet. So if you do not want to make the legislation easier, you have to show stronger opposition. I'm reading from second paragraph. On September 19, 2018, its 8th meeting, the opposing task force members submitted an opinion saying, we will not sign any report or compilation of task force. On October 15 final meeting, the same opinion was submitted by the opposing task force members. On same meeting, final meeting, task force decided not to proceed with the compilation report. January 2019, the government announces that it had abandoned the blocking legislation. Okay, this is the end of the story. On the last slide, I'm back on the theme of this slot, Showcase 3. It's asking, is the internet trusted forever? It's hard to talk about forever. It's hard to talk about eternity. But we might be able to talk about near future. If we want the internet to be trusted even for a little while longer, we should do what it takes to be trusted. We should do what is in need to be trusted. If a proposal for blocking has been made in your country, we would like to share your experience in more detail. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mori. So, so he was a great man, but we don't have much time to explain about it. But other time we will explain about that. So, so next is from government. Could you make a speech? あ、So could you can you read this presentation?
Yes.
So, good afternoon. My name is Kuniko Ogawa from the Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications, MIC Japan. Thank you so much for inviting me as a panelist at the APrIGF today. The online piracy became the serious problem as COVID-19 had changed our lives, and more people enjoy online manga, books, and movies, etc. through internet from their home. The importance to combat online piracy is increasing. The government of Japan worked together with stakeholders to solve this problem. Today, I'd like to explain our effort and approach for this issue. The government of Japan has developed and published comprehensive menu of countermeasures against online piracy by relevant ministries and agencies in October 2019. Updated version of the comprehensive menu was released in April 2021. In the updated version of the menu, we enhance our work, especially in the 4 areas shown in the green letter. Number 1, enhance international cooperation and enforcement. Number 2, regulating lead site and illegalization of download of piracy content. Number 3, warning access to online piracy site. Number 4, enhance process to identify center. MIC has developed and published MIC's policy menu of countermeasures against online piracy as part of the government's comprehensive menu. And MIC is implementing these measures in cooperation with related ministries, organizations, and businesses. The MIC's policy menu consists of the 4 pillars you see here. Number 1, red one, is awareness raising activities to improve information moral and ICT literacy of users. And number 2, green pillar, introduce measures to deter accesses to online piracy sites through security software. Number 3, blue one, amend the law regarding disclosure of senders' information. And number 4, orange one, enhance international cooperation for countermeasure against online piracy site. Then let me explain each of the pillars in detail. The first pillar, red one, awareness raising activities for consumer are really important as it became foundation for effective countermeasures. We updated the course materials of Internet Caravan and the case study of the internet travel, and let students and young people know the amendment of the Copyright Act enforced in January 2021 that illegalized download of piracy content. The second pillar, green one, is to deter access to online piracy sites through security software. With the collaboration with stakeholders, MIC is promoting a measure to deter access to piracy site by displaying a warning message. So you can see in a white side through security software. Since last summer, MIC have been holding study group with security provider and mobile carriers to encourage the introduction of the deterring access function in security software. We think that user acceptance and understandings for these measures necessary. Last autumn, we conducted survey and found out that most of the users do not want to access piracy site, which became illegal, and welcome the function of security software to deter access to piracy site. As Professor Shishido mentioned, establishment of APrIGF by the publishing industry as the central hub organization for anti-piracy measures play key role to realize this measure. APrIGF collects information of piracy site, judges, and lists them in neutral position. The latest list is transferred to security software providers through information sharing framework. So you can see the red square. The third pillar is amendment of the Provider Liability Limitation Act, which stipulates the procedure of sender information disclosure system. The amendment of the act passed in April 2021 in order to make it more smoothly to relieve the victim of infringements such as online piracy. Previously, 2 legal steps at the court were generally required for the disclosure of sender's information. The amendment established a new legal procedure which makes sender information disclosure in one procedure. New type of court order to save the log data until the disclosure order by court have been also introduced. The fourth pillar is enhance international cooperation for countermeasures against online piracy site. Japan proposed to accelerate the discussion on issues on DNS abuse at ICANN-GAP, ICANN's governmental advisory body, and discuss the importance of combating DNS abuse with a view to combat piracy. At the suggestion of Japan, the communique of ICANN 70 and 71 confirmed the importance of appropriate countermeasures against DNS abuse in order to ensure that DNS operators fulfill their obligations agreements to ICANN. The following ideas have been raised as possible solutions: collecting accurate information from registrars at this time of domain registration, verification of registrar identity, and stricter response to abuse reports. Finally, I'd like to mention the most important point. To protect freedom of internet and freedom of expression, it is important that self-governance work under the multi-stakeholder collaboration through the voluntary effort of all stakeholders. The more the internet getting sophisticated and complex, the more the stakeholders who involved in activities on the internet increase. To tackle with internet abuse, it is needed to discuss widely and to collaborate between various relating stakeholders, like telecommunications operator, content layer operators such as SNS providers, search service providers, ad providers, CDN, content delivery network provider, registry of the domain, and consumer. To protect freedom of expression as well as trust in the internet, we are sure that we need to enhance awareness and cooperation in the internet community, like IGF, to solve this problem. I hope this panel will be the step for the future collaboration. Thank you so much, your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ogawa. So almost all time is 15 minutes, but could you give me a few minutes more? And the next is Keiko Tanaka. The floor is yours, okay?
Thank you. I am here representing on behalf of an anonymous journalist who has been covering the matter since the days of the controversy. So I'm going to read out loud her letter. We've managed to prevent DNS blocking from practically happening in 2018. But this conflict sort of illustrates the growth of conflicts between rights and rights. This is the complication due to the digitalization in my understanding. I worry that the existing rights of citizens will be uncertain in the future without the deliberate facilitation to digital technologies. It was 2018 when the Cabinet decision on DNS blocking, which ultimately didn't happen. But it is important to know that the government review meeting of 2010 provided legal liquidation that any action to violate secrecy of information in Telecommunication Business Act only acceptable to prevent child pornography to be accessed, but it should never be acceptable for copyright infringements. So this legal liquidation, 8 years later, suddenly flipped the interpretation that this is enforceable. And this was done without any legislative due process. So that is why internet industry in Japan was shocked that this has happened. But most people in Japan did not care so much about this issue. Even the mass media, who is supposed to have the professionals that covers technologies, thought this was just the case where only piracy gets blocked. It doesn't mean massive violence. But so we need to have more people get involved in understanding the issue technically as well as the impact to democracy. Prevention of DNS blocking happening for the countermeasure of piracy in 2018 was only possible thanks to those people here today as in the panelists and those who took the time and energy with the passion to take action. And those are the heroes. But the rights of internet freedom is unlike any other rights. It's vast and reaches so many aspects of our life. But reducing it will not starve us or make us dead. So if somebody tried to reduce the internet freedom, life still goes on. So we need to protect that somehow. But there is no interest group who is dedicated to protecting internet freedom. In a country like Japan, where civil society is weak or disempowered, I would say, I find it difficult if politician, government, and industry move on to a direction of reducing rights. This is especially the case after the cabinet starting to have a full control over the assigning of executive officials of ministry since 2014. I urge those who are attending the session and the larger APrIGF today, equipped with the knowledge in ICT and foster and collaborate in fostering a stronger civil society for the sake of internet freedom. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Naka. So this is all our presentation. Sorry for a few minutes. That's it. Okay. So how can I end this?
Excuse me, 3 minutes Q&A sessions would be great.
So is there any other question? Do you have anyone? Is it okay? So for more information, we will present you a website and we inform you about that. So please let me know the more information in your countries and the opinions. Any comments, welcome. Oh, thank you very much for today. Thank you.